Thank you, Tanya. My topic is love, fear, and high performance. And what's love got to do with high performance, and what's fear got to do with high performance? I guess I have been, it's been a quest of mine my whole life to try and understand what drives high performance. And it led me to leading McKinsey's global practice in this area. I've spent 10 years in New York, driving it globally, 30 countries every year, crazy sort of stuff. The one thing I learned from all that, by the way, is that people all over the world are essentially the same. Everywhere I'd go, they'd say in Brazil, oh, we're different. Or you turn up in Taiwan, oh, we're different. Right? Every company, oh, but we're different. And on the surface, there are some differences, but actually, we're all essentially the same. And therefore, what drives human performance is essentially the same throughout the whole world. I can promise you that. I've literally seen it in 30 countries, and it's true. I started my career in the 80s when it was all about command and control. And some of you who are old enough will remember Al Dunlap, who was the CEO of Sunbeam that went completely, he was the big cost cutter. He was the celebrity CEO in my first year in McKinsey in 1986. And I kept asking myself this question, does it have to be like this? Do people have to be driven? Do they have to be cajoled? Do they have to live in fear to actually have high performance? And I now understand, 20 odd years later, why I was asking those questions, because I grew up in a family where my father was a loving man, but also an alcoholic who was violent. So I grew up asking, does it have to be like this? Do people have to injure each other to get things done? And equally with children, is it right to be the tough tiger mother, or is there another way? And so these questions have been with me my whole life and actually led me to do the things I've done. So one of the things that led me to do in leading McKinsey's practice was I had this budget over 10 years of $30 million to invest in trying to discover what really drives high performance. And we did it working with clients, we worked with specialists, from universities. And what I'd like to do now is just share with you briefly what we learned for that $30 million in 10 years. And I want to do that by asking you a question. If you think back on your career, think of a time that you would describe as a peak performance experience, when you worked with others and you did something truly extraordinary. It's the sort of time when you're a grandma or a grandpa and the grandkids say, "Grandma, what did you do?" And you think, "Oh, we did this." Can I ask you just to think about that for a minute? Can you find a time you'd say was a peak experience? Working with others, you did something truly extraordinary, truly high performance? Who's got something? Just let me see. Who's had an experience you'd say was a peak experience? We all have pretty well, right? Okay, now what I'd like to ask you to do is, why did you choose that? What was there more of or less of that made you choose that experience and not the others? Just have a think about that. What was there more of or less of? Why that experience was peak? Why was it so much more productive? Okay, I'm going to ask you to stand up and then turn to the person next to you and very briefly, so I'm only going to give you a couple of minutes, describe to them what that peak experience was and most importantly, what was different about it, why you chose it. Country dance, up you get, choose a partner. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. If you could just, thank you. As you grab a seat, if you could just thank your partner for sharing their peak experience. So normally when I do this with executives, and I've done this all over the world with executives, I always then ask them, tell me what was there, and we have little pairs and they all talk, and I write it all up on a board and we build it up, but we haven't got time to do that. So I'm just going to throw up the things that always come up and see whether they're true for you. In your peak experience, did you find that there was a big, almost impossible goal? Put your hand up. Okay, thank you. Big, almost impossible goal. Remember this, I'm going to come back to it. Secondly, did that goal feel meaningful, that it mattered to you? okay? And success and failure was very close at hand, was the feeling of it, right? Secondly, was there something in the way the team worked? Care, respect, okay? Was there something that you'd say was almost care beyond the workplace? Yeah, okay, very interesting, right? Very interesting. Third thing, did you feel like you really didn't know what you were doing? Honestly. Yeah, look at this. I love it. Were you making it up as you went? Yeah. Was it one of the great learning experiences of your professional life? Absolutely. Okay, now we spent $30 million in 10 years, and it all came back. The answer's in the room, and we all know you just have to ask the right question, right? And the answer to high performance is this. It's very simple. It's always the same in every culture. In a high performance experience, there's always a big, almost impossible and meaningful goal. So the first thing you have to ask yourself as a leader, and it transformed my leadership, was, are you as a leader creating a big enough, audacious enough, scary enough goal? Who would say you were more than 2 times productive? Hands up. 5 times productive? Hands up. Okay, there's actually a lot of research on this. It depends on how much interaction and how much information there is in the role. If you're just pulling a lever in a factory, it's 0.85, it's nearly double. If the sort of jobs we all have, it's 5 to 8 times more productive.
Wow.
Okay, it's huge. One other thought. I talked about meaningful. What do I mean by meaningful? This is an interesting one. We did a lot of research on what meaning is, and again, it comes back to something we've known for a long time: Maslow's hierarchy. There are actually 7 drivers of meaning. Now, can I get you just to write these down? Because I'm going to ask you to do something with them. On a piece of paper, I'm going to ask you to write 7 words going up a hierarchy. I'm going to give you the bottom one first, and then the 7, and I'm going to ask you to do something with it. So the first word is the personal, the survival personal. Write the word personal. So the first meaning is, I'm going to make money, I'm going to look after the family. It's sort of the personal meaning. It's the survival level in Maslow. Second one, team. Are we going to have a good experience here? Right? Third one, customer. Am I going to have a good interaction with my customers? Am I going to feel good about what we're doing here? They're both the belonging levels of Maslow. What's next on Maslow? Achievement. Is the company, so put in there the company, just put in company, is the company going to do well? Then you get to self-actualization, and there's 3 levels of self-actualization. First one is growing, so put growing and helping others and yourself. Second one is society. I turn up at the barbecue, do I feel good about what I'm doing? Can I say to my friends I do X? Oh, that's fantastic. And the third one is the planet. Do I feel like I'm making a difference to the planet? Now, I want to ask you this question quickly. If I gave you 100 points to divide between those 7 and asked you to say what gets you up in the morning, just quickly divide it by 100 points. We could have a lot of fun with this if we had more time and really look at why you put what you put and how it changes through the process of your life. But let me ask you this question. How many points did you put on the company one, on the achievement one? Who put 20% or more on that? Very few, right? This is an interesting thing. I've done this with frontline people. I've done this with boards. I've done this all over the world. Boards who are meant to be shareholder representatives, they should be like 100% on the company achievement one, 20% roughly. So what actually gets us up in the morning is usually, and this is how it works out over having done thousands of these, roughly 20% is the achievement one. You get a chunk that's down in the personal, you get a chunk in the belonging, and you get a chunk up here in the actualization. Now, what often happens when a CEO turns up is they talk 80%, and I've tracked this, about the company. If we do this change program, it's going to be this good for the company, and this good for the company, and that for the company. And what's happening while they're saying that? You're all sitting there going, yeah, but what does it mean for me? Yeah, what does it mean for how I'm going to feel in the team? Are we going to have a better experience here? Is it going to get worse? What about my customers? Is this a good idea for them? How am I going to feel about that? And is this a good thing for the planet? Or is this company just trying to, make money? So one of the things I'd say to you is that whether you want to or not as a leader, there are 4 stories going on. And if you talk to the 4 stories, and one of the things that I've had to learn and I work with my CEO clients on is when you talk about what you're going to do, you've got to be able to talk about the 4 stories, because if you don't, people are going to be having inner conversation about them. And meaning is the biggest source of energy in the human system. How many of you have ever woken up in the morning and felt like, why am I doing this? Honestly. How hard is it to get up and go to work or get on the plane? Right? Meaning is the biggest source of energy in the human system. So understanding what drives meaning is a very simple thing. Just take away that one idea and it can transform the amount of energy, the source of energy that comes in and goes into that high-performing experience. You never have the high-performing experience without the big meaning. So I just want to leave you with these 2 thoughts in the time that we have. Love, fear, and high performance. Paradoxically, it's both. To have high performance, you've got to have the appropriate challenge. You've got to have the big, scary thing but it's got to be meaningful. And you've got to have a supportive, loving, if I might use that word, caring team environment. And if you get those 3 things happening as a leader, you get the sort of environment that Steve was talking about, where you get these wonderful, highly productive experiences. Thank you very much.